I joined Cancer Genetics as CEO and president about 6 years ago. We are a public company, and of course, we may or may not make updates to what we say here today, so I've got to say that. But everything that we do at Cancer Genetics is focused purely on developing more and more capabilities in oncology. And we really are focused on becoming the partner in oncology diagnostics and precision medicine. Our business model is a little unique in that we are growing our own content, but we really changed that a few years after I got there to take on a more collaborative approach. And we really use open innovation to partner with leading institutions like Mayo and Keck School of Medicine and others to bring their ideas, because they have clinical action. They have, looking at real content, real technology. So we have moved the company from just having, all the homegrown ideas to really trying to address a large global market to an open innovation framework. We have 18, probably 20 now, research collaborations with leading institutions, including Mayo, University of Paris, Sloan Kettering, Keck School of Medicine, et cetera, and maybe even Cedars-Sinai, hopefully, too, so that'd be great. Oncology is a big category. $450 billion will be spent. About 5 to 6% of that will be spent on testing and diagnostics. So it's a very small piece, but a very large category. We've done 3 acquisitions since I got there to establish a footprint. Diagnostics is a very challenging and very fragmented market. How many of you here have had someone in your family or a loved one impacted by cancer? Big number. How many of you guys know if that person was tested using a genomic test or a genetic test? 3. So that's the opportunity. You see that even today, going into 2017, in a room where everyone has an interest in life science and biotech, the fact that 80–90% of you raised your hands, but yet only 3, that's the opportunity. That's where, in going into 2017, the state of advanced genomic and biomarker testing is. There's a long way to go still, both in terms of cost, availability, understanding, and most importantly, driving real business to make it happen. Our business model is a little unique. We focus on developing insights with new institutions, and it's about 5% of our revenue today comes from working with big leading institutions to help them make discoveries happen. We also work with a lot of biotech and pharma companies. We work with 8 out of the top 10. In fact, Celgene is actually one of our largest customers in New Jersey. We know the translational team and the immuno-oncology team, so Celgene, we do a lot of work with them. And we provide a lot of work to help them both in clinical trials but also in therapeutic development. Understanding which subtypes of patients will respond, why they respond, are there potential mechanisms that we could take advantage of? Are these markers, are they durable, are they not, do they change? And so there's a lot of data that's required. And then ultimately, the long tail is patient care. A lot of these tests eventually come out into the marketplace, and they have to be done by labs like ours. And so that's about 1/3 of our revenue comes from patient testing, about 2/3 from clinical trials and research. What we're very focused on is to have a very comprehensive portfolio. We are not a NGS-only shop. We don't think that any one technology has the answer. I think as soon as you think you have a technology that has the answer for everything, to me, is always a doomed business plan. Cancer evolves, changes. Every type of cancer is totally, totally different. That's why in Los Angeles, we're very focused on solid tumor, New Jersey, and heme. And we use multiple technologies. We are disease-focused. We think you cannot just do one big panel. And some of my competition are not in the room, so I can make a little more fun of them. Having one 400-gene panel to tell you everything about cancer is absolutely a falsehood. So I wonder if nothing else, you walk away today, remember that there is no universal cancer panel. And unfortunately, Patrick is not in the room tonight, but there is no universal cancer panel. It doesn't exist. And you have to have disease knowledge, because the same genes that are aberrant, mutated, gained, lost, they could mean different things in different cancer systems. A HER2 amplification for gastric may or may not be the same thing as a HER2 in breast or a HER2 in a male with breast. These can mean totally different things clinically. Can't be treated the same. So you have to have disease knowledge. can't just run stuff on machines and expect great outcomes on patients. And so disease knowledge, it means that you have to have a company that is interdisciplinary. You have to bring biology, mathematics, bioinformatics, clinical care, and that's why, at CGI we're very focused on 4 big values to drive a great company. And those are, you have to have knowledge, innovation, leadership, because ultimately you have to be a leader, not only internally but externally, and then finally it's collaboration. And that's one of the biggest challenges when I got it to CGI several years ago, and continues to be, is to how do you make people collaborate? And so we've acquired 3 companies, and forcing that kind of collaboration is not easy, but that ultimately is how you create great companies, because the interaction that people will have with one another creates new ideas, and those ideas get taken to market sometimes, they get talked about, and so collaboration is a core value. We have a lot of those. We have over 20 with leading institutions that constantly drive new ideas. We have a global infrastructure, that's very important also. The days of just having one site to really help in oncology are coming to an end. You need to have global infrastructure for trials. We have operations in India and China. We're looking to expand also in other places. Ultimately, our goal is to really be the oncology partner of choice, and ultimately, it will be less and less about the test and more about the information. And so ultimately, you're going to be mining information over time, just like the major myeloma genomic initiative that Celgene is driving is not so they can just diagnose more patients. They want to really understand how myeloma changes over time and all the different various signatures, and it's a wonderfully multi-clonal disease. So these kind of initiatives are critical because eventually you're going to need companies like CGI to analyze and help gather and understand that data. Again, the market is big. That's why a lot of companies are in it. It's about $11.2 billion we predict in the out years. Over 3,000 clinical trials for all cancer types, over 4,000 hospitals, and they're all trying to figure out how do we diagnose patients cheaper, faster, and with greater accuracy. So this is a market that's very needed. We have a pretty significant portfolio, as I mentioned. We have about over a dozen, 14 tests in market. Blood cancers, we have an FDA-cleared test for tissue of origin, which is a very unique test. And that test, the tissue of origin test, in any given year, there's probably about anywhere between 4 and 8% of cancers that are challenging to diagnose. You can't know what cancer it is, so we have a test that we can take the genomic signature, and tell you what is the most likely spot of origination for that cancer, whether it's kidney or lung or something else. And again, that's an FDA-cleared test. And we have a joint venture with Mayo Clinic, where we're developing 3 additional tests, one in multiple myeloma, one a lung cancer test to detect for multiclonal lung cancers, and one in follicular. Just on our company, again, we're working with 8 out of the top 10 pharmas. We are now supporting probably well over 125 to 130 clinical trials across our sites. We've about close to $50 million in future revenue inked with big biotech and pharma. And as you can see in the gray bar, biopharma has really become a big piece of our business, doing work with biopharma. So the first 9 months of this year, we've done about $20 million, about half of it from biopharma. So what's driving our growth today? Something that's not necessarily genomic, but this is wonderful because it's really a technology that's been around for 45 years, maybe. What year is this, 16, 17? It's a technology that's about my age. I'm 45, so I think it's about 45 years old. And it's immunohistochemistry, not genomics. In fact, you don't even need a genomic test if you do this IHC test properly. And so this is really driving a lot of change. It's what's behind these wonderful new drugs called Keytruda and Opdivo, and what you're testing really is PD-L1 expression. A little more complicated than that. Every tumor type is different. How you measure it is different. The ratios are different. It actually ends up being very complicated. But again, you're looking at a protein, not a gene. Healthcare systems need partners. A lot of healthcare systems did a lot of early work in NGS, and they found that they couldn't keep up the pace. They couldn't get all the new tests up and running fast enough. They're very costly. They didn't have enough sufficient volume of data. The panels change. I mean, just think, NGS machines that you bought 2 years ago, they're obsolete now. You can't use them. So technology changes. so rapidly, and then you got to validate, you got to get New York State compliance, CLIA, FDA, or CE. It's too expensive, so hospitals need to do what the hospitals do best, which is focus on the management and care of patients, and they're partnering now. We're seeing now all those NGS initiatives being reconsidered and going out to major companies that can do it at volume and scale. A third driver for our growth is testing innovation. We have 4 new tests coming out in probably the next 2 months, less than 2 months. One we're about to launch for hereditary breast and ovarian. One is an NGS panel for immuno-oncology. Another one in multiple myeloma, and a fourth one also in immuno-oncology. And then biopharma partners. Again, as I mentioned, we're working with 8 of the top 10 biopharma, and those are all driving our growth. The other driver for our growth has been targeted acquisitions, so we're always on the lookout for new things that will give us access to unique content or capabilities, expand our geographic footprint, strengthen or diversify our customer base, and more importantly, something that we can do with it that is not being done today. That's what we look for. You know, what can we do with this asset that we can get real synergistic value? And so I'm not going to go through the acquisitions, but we've done 3 so far. And again, as I mentioned, we're always looking for content, capabilities, customers. And you know, collaborations are key. We love to collaborate. As I mentioned, we have collaborations globally, India, France, and many here in the US, in various cancers. And that gives us access to new content, new ideas, gives us access to new biomarkers, gives us access to new patient sets. And collaborations are very important because cancer is such a complex, varied disease. I skipped a few slides. We have some of our collaboration highlights so far just this year. One is the H3 Biomedicine. They're working on a gene splicing drug, very first ever gene splicing drug. And H3 Biomedicine is based out of Cambridge Division of Eisai. It's a very exciting drug, mostly for myeloid cancers. And we're doing all the discovery and clinical trial work for that agent. Another one is, and that came out as a result of our collaboration actually with Columbia. And at Columbia University, we were doing work with Drs. Raza and Dr. Mukherjee. Dr. Mukherjee is the guy who wrote the book, Emperor of All Maladies. You guys know that book? So he's really big in MDS and myeloid cancer. We developed a unique panel there and also looking specifically at SF3B1 mutation. That led to the H3 Bio collaboration. The work we did with Huntsman and kidney cancer led us to do work with Pfizer, and the work we did at USC led us to a collaboration with HTG. So you can see if you do interesting work, other people tend to follow and want to do work with you. And again, OncoSpire, which is our joint work with Mayo, we're always looking for new projects. The first 2 that we're launching are again in multiple myeloma and in lung cancer. So how do we look at panels and panel design? I'm going to just touch on it really quickly. There are obviously clinical targets that are well known in every cancer. Whether the insurance companies pay for them or not is a different issue, and I won't touch on that tonight on reimbursement, but these are well accepted in the literature and in science that genes do matter. So there are clinical targets that people want to know about in most lymphoid cancers. Then there's very important genes that go aberrant in one of the most challenging cancers, DLBCL. And so obviously we look at those because that's a major subset of the lymphoid cancers. Looking at a patient's overall risk or what the outcome may be is a big central question in treatment, and so we look at some of those genes. And then obviously genes that are associated with drug pathways. So we look at the trials that are out there, and there obviously are a lot of Wnt trials, PI3 kinase trials, BCR trials, and we look at those pathways and say what's in phase 2B or phase 3. We look at the universe of pathways and try to incorporate genes that the pharmas will find interesting. And that's how we look at panel design. So look at what gives you diagnostic information, prognostic information, and therapeutic information. We have a number of these panels that we've designed that are out in market today. Same with the design of our kidney cancer renal panel. We look at the frequently mutated ones. We look at the ones that are going to target to an FDA drug. We look at ones that are going to give you copy number information that help with therapy response. And then we also, in this case, because copy number matters, we do a genome-wide gain loss assessment for renal cancer. So again, understand the biology of this disease is important. We have not just genomic information, but these panels need to be complemented by immunohistochemistry or flow or other molecular studies that are more targeted or FISH. And so all of our diseases are bundled into what we call complete packages. So you can get the totality of information about a disease in one report. And that's very critical, because today you have to send it off to different labs to do it. You send it to your genomic lab, like Foundation, but they're not going to do FISH, they're not going to do IHC. Then you're going to send it off to LabCorp or Quest or somewhere else. So you end up with scattered data, which is one of the biggest issues in cancer, is that you end up with too many reports. So getting all this in one place is very, very critical. And so we do that in solid tumors as well. And I know I'm short on time, so I'm going to just, you can get a lot of information from our website about our different products. Again, we have a very extensive menu. The FDA cleared test, which is tissue of origin. We have another test that's CE marked. We're hoping to go for FDA clearance for HPV-related cancers, specifically cervical, where we can triage women from getting over-proceduralized, getting too many colposcopies, so we can tell you whether or not there's actually presence of cancer, not just HPV presence. And again, our areas of focus, if you guys have ideas, or more importantly, if any of you are interested in collaborating with us, we're always looking for unique content. That's a big area. We're looking to continue expanding our immuno-oncology capabilities. We think we're in the early stages of a ton of data in IO work. And third, high sensitivity liquid biopsy and cell-free analysis, which we think will replace the need for tissue, especially for monitoring and therapeutic drug monitoring. So those are our big three areas that we're going to continue investing and looking for more collaborations. With that, you can also find this presentation online, so I'm not going to go through it, but we have about 100 patents globally so that we feel somewhat protected in doing our business. As I mentioned, we're doing over 100 trials. Many of those will change patients, and more importantly, many of those will go into being a companion diagnostic that CGI will have. Our growth, we have a strong record of growth both year over year as well as quarter to quarter. In the first 9 months, we've done about 20 million. Analysts expect us to do about 27, 28, which I think we're comfortable with for this year. A lot of new launches and growth drivers. I mentioned hereditary cancer, immuno-oncology NGS panel, the kidney panel, which we just launched, and multiple myeloma. First half of next year, we'll be launching 2 liquid biopsy assays. And also we made a big partnership with ApoCell, which is a rare cell detection and capture system. And we're very excited about that partnership as well. So again, we have a lot going on in our company. We've got a team of great people on this table. I encourage you guys to reach out to them. They're all based here in Los Angeles. Anna manages clinical affairs, very knowledgeable, MD, PhD. Bob, again, very knowledgeable. He's an MD, MBA, and he's based here, and he also runs a lot of the site operations. And Dr. Tu, MD, PhD, great background, and most recent hire, joined as medical director. So again, we have a great team of people, and we'd love to find more things to do with SoCal Bio, and more importantly, the community, so that we can collaborate with them. That I will wrap up and let the next speaker go. Okay.